at the River Restaurant and developed recommendations for ways to keep this from happening again. I never had presided over hearing when we didn't get anything new and significant, he said. Nevertheless, it could be 6 months or more before the agency issues a report that it hopes will both identify the accidents caused and offer advice for preventing similar tragedies, the NTSB official said Monday. We've been having such a heavy workload, it's been a very heavy accident season. Burnett said we'd like to have our report complete 6 months after the accident, but this one could take longer. Burnett and the members of his agency staff were in Waterbury on Monday for a private pre-hearing, and representatives of those involved the blast during the 90-minute meeting. They discussed evidence, a list of witnesses, the format, and grand rules of the upcoming public hearing. Burnett said, no local, state, or federal agencies has assigned the cause to the explosion, but it was widely believed to have been originating with a leak of natural gas from a nearby pipeline. Neighbors at a restaurant reported smelling gas in the air, but not for long as before the blast, and federal investigators have been testing a 3-inch pipe of an 85-year-old cast-iron gas pipe that was found to have been ruptured. Authorities have not indicated whether they believe the rupture occurred before the explosion or whether it may have been happened in a shock. The pipe was found about 100 feet from the restaurant.
Police say they found his girlfriend bleeding and bruised in the church bathroom Saturday. Jones allegedly hit the woman following an argument
in New Haven, promising that baseball will be the first professional sport to eliminate illegal drug use among its players. Baseball Commissioner Peter Ueberroth has called for an across-the-board crackdown on what he has termed the engine of the crime in its country. In a speech at Yale University Monday night, Ueberroth drew enthusiastic applause when he said he can pledge to you in the 1986 season, baseball will put on the field of play teams that will be drug-free. Ueberroth called on the major leagues to adopt a mandatory testing program similar to one now used in the minors, claiming this system is effective because it guarantees confidentiality. I don't like it, the concept of testing, but I'm going to fight it, and I think I'm going to win it, he said. Ueberroth outlined the following steps he said it would diminish the drug problem not just in baseball, but throughout society. Apply pressure to drug-producing countries. We need some good aggressive diplomacy in the country that grow the stuff, he said. Tighten international borders used in the military if necessary to beef up patrols. The border in this country is a flat sleeve, he said, adding that patrols are limited to because of their tinkatory equipment. Strength and law enforcement on the streets and in the courts, and calling the private sector to commit more money for drug awareness programs.
Yes, there's a tiny in size and
Yonkers, New York. Investigators are trying to determine whether a woman's death by cyanide poisoning was linked to extreme Tylenol, and a supermarket chain has pulled its popular painkiller from its stores in 24 states. A&P pulled extra strength Tylenol capsules from the shelves in its more than 1,000 stores on Monday after police said Dan Ellsworth, 23, Peekskill, was found dead Saturday about 12 hours after taking 2 Tylenol capsules. Officials said Mrs. Ellsworth was visiting her boyfriend, took a couple of tablets the night before, but she was not feeling well, said Deputy Chief Orrin McLean in a Monday night news conference. That the bottle was bought at a Bronxville A&P. A&P ordered a recall as a precautionary measure, and said Michael J. Rourke, a spokesman for the Montvale, New Jersey-based company, said we are still waiting to hear more from the FDA and the Yonkers Police and Johnson & Johnson. Here in New London, and pharmacies and supermarkets around the Constitution State, Harris pharmacies and supermarkets were written their shelves of extra safe Tylenol capsules today, although they received no official word from Johnson & Johnson to make the move. I'm surprised to hear that this, said Rain DeVoe, owner and pharmacist at the Montauk Pharmacy, reacting to news that once again Tylenol has been linked to a cyanide poisoning death. Local stores went for the same shelf-clearing exercise in September 1982 after several people in the Chicago area died from taking cyanide-laced extra-strength Tylenol. A 15-year-old was raped and brutally beaten, refused to back down Monday in New London Superior Court, finding a judge's decision and sentenced Michael A. Dunn to 7 years in prison. I want to go to trial, she said, after clearing calmly after listening to Judge James D. O'Connor and defense attorney Dominic Paysons recite the problems with the case. I feel that this punishment should be much more severe for what he's done to me and my family, she said during a late afternoon sentencing. I agree with you, O'Connor said, but I didn't want to take the chance that there's no punishment at all. The judge continued to be proceeding until today. The major problem with the case, according to O'Connor presenter and Assistant State Attorney John F. Cochillo, is that the victim was not able to presently identify Dunn as her attacker. The case against Dunn, 26 of Fern Street in New London, is circumstantial with a built-in complicating factors. O'Connor emphasized that the factors create something between the possibility of a likelihood of acquittal. Although a great deal of evidence places Dunn at the Stewart Street home where the victim was repeatedly raped and beaten on August 19th, has been working for the owners who are recommending and remodeling the home, and the victim was babysitting a couple's infant the night of the attack. Among the most incriminating evidence, Curry said, is that Dunn knew the rape and Tam would only needed touchman would know. Also, Dunn and scratches on the bite mark on the body consistent with the wound of the victim she was inflicted while fighting off the attacker. Fingerprints and footprints have been identified as this hair and blood samples have been taken from the scene of the rape of
Wondering what's next for your retirement? The answer.
Cochio said and recommended that Dunn to be sentenced to 30 years in prison suspended after 20 years served for what he labeled a particularly brutal attack. Not only the victim was raped repeatedly, but she was badly beaten. She could not have fired. Attacker's face. New London saying the federal government's community development program was never meant to be another United Way. City Council said Monday that they would be voted against funding 6 social service agencies for have received the money for the years. In particular, Trist. The Democratic majority indicated its favors police protection for health care, foremost, and other services, and the county sole Republican was the holdout for the funding agencies. City Manager C. Francis Driscoll trimmed the council's tense courageous wall. The director of one of the agencies, the council position shows New London is a city without a conscience. A meeting was held scheduled for 5:30 p.m. today, whether permitted to establish community development priorities. Everyone sitting up here is getting very uncomfortable. Councilor Carl Stoner said and added that each year the funding decisions become more difficult and community development funds dwindle. Community development was never meant to be another United Way or borderline fund. We got to perhaps make some hard decisions. Councilor Robert A. Martin citing Plato when government must keep in mind its primary responsibilities. Government is supplying the make order of the chaos of in cities such as New London that translates into place up.
I'm Joe Kennedy. If you need help, call me at 1-877-JOE for oil. Because no one should be left out in the cold.
Local community is on edge after the discovery of an apparent hit list at an elementary school. A substitute teacher at Hill Roberts Elementary in Attleboro allegedly found a 4th grader with a note characterized as a hit.
In New London, the high school's roof is floating on top of the building and must be replaced immediately at a cost of about $175,000. The City Council's Education Committee was told Monday. Councilors had just finished hearing a distress request for $609,000 in additional request for this year from the Board of Education when building official Melvin J. Jetmore dropped his latest bombshell. Jetmore said Alfred E. Schaefer, the city's superintendent of public buildings, was dispatched to the high school this week to inspect the leak to the roof and discovered water was seeping underneath the entire roof line. He said the roof was floating on the top of the building. The only solution is said to be replace the roof. He estimated the cost of between $150,000 and $175,000. School Superintendent Renee J. Reset said he is not yet sure whether school must be closed in order to replace the roof. LD is yet to be discussed. He noted that the next week is school vacation and the council won't take up the issue until next Tuesday, which went to the timing. The nose on the roof.
Premature to talk about resignation.
Handicapped a string of mid-year budget requests presented by the board, beginning with an immediate need for $174,000 in pay for drastically increased health and poverty insurance costs. Council has problems that board members seeking some cooperation from the school's budget, but board member Michael J. Pescatello said the money will have to come from the city's general fund. I don't see where there's a possibility of finding money in an education budget, he said. The council committee voted at 6-0 to approve the emergency insurance fund, and then the next series of requests came. The audiovisual coordinator at the high school is the 16 years has been the school auditorium open. Nothing has been done to it. The results, he said, as the stage rigging and lighting have so deteriorated that they are dangerous. There's 1,000 ways you can get killed in the auditorium.
We're on your phone, on your tablet, or desktop.
In Groton, an official of the Army Corps of Engineers said plans to expand Spicer, Marina, and Noack have doomed unless modifications be made that will make the project more compatible with the interests of the town. James Law, the agency's project manager east of the Connecticut River, said the Army Corps is mainly concerned with the cumulative impact of such development on the resource value of West Cove. If he wants to go out halfway in the cove, what would happen if someone on the other side wants to go halfway? It would preclude development on the other side, Law said. Army Corps officials discussed the Marina's plans to increase its slips from 181 to Queer Monday with Hartford attorney Dwight Merriman was represented Spicer's Marina. The Corps recommended that the project, which has scaled down once already, has scaled down further. There was no formal denial. We just saying that we are very serious concerns with the proposal as it stands, and it's likely to be denied unless 3 concerns that are addressed. Law said. Marina owner William Spicer could not be reached for comment.
Your solution for organization, more space, and easy access. Shelf Genius custom built to fit existing cabinets. Even blind corners are no match. Now through Wednesday.
In Berlin, Jewish descendant Anatoly Shinatsky walked to freedom across the snow-covered Glenkey Bridge today after nearly 9 years in Soviet prisons and labor camps and was whisked away in a U.S. ambassador's car for a flight to Israel. West German police said that Shinatsky, wearing a silver fur hat, was handed over to United States Ambassador Richard Burton start at 10:57 a.m., which is 4:57 a.m. here in Hartford. The 38-year-old Shrensky waved to a crowd of bystanders and well-wishers of Bert's Mercedes-Benz rode past a crowd of waiting journalists and headed down a road leading along the Berlin Wall. U.S. and West German officials said that the 5 suspected Soviet bloc agents in prison in the West were also exchanged for 3 Westerners jailed in the East after Shrensky was freed. The exchange was concluded at 11:30 a.m., 5:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, officials said. The release of Shrensky will become one of the most prominent descendants of the Soviet Union, and it is determined in the Soviet Union. He was sentenced in 1978 to 13 years after being convicted of being spying on the CIA, a charge that he repeatedly denied. U.S. officials said that Shrensky was released before the others emphasized their insistence that the activist in human rights and Jewish cause was not a spy. On Glen Key Bridge, Shrensky engaged Burton in animated conversations. Eyewitnesses, including Associated Press reporter George John, said Shrensky, who himself and really suffered in prison, appeared in good shape. The 2 men sped to Berlin's Tempelhof Airport aboard a U.S. Air Force plane in Frankfurt, and police said the flight was delayed temporarily by mechanical defect in the plane, but then took off in London and Frankfurt. From Frankfurt, Shrensky was to fly to Tel Aviv for what Israeli officials said would be a giant welcoming ceremony.
A senior U.S. official tells the Wall Street Journal the decision was made.
In Washington, a presidential commission investigating the explosion of Space Shuttle Challenger is resuming public hearings after a day of closed-door testimony that focused on booster rocket seals suspected as a cause of history's worst space tragedy. William Rogers, the former Secretary of State who heads the independent panel, said Monday the public session was called to provide a more accurate idea of what experiments contained in the internal National Reconnaissance Space Administration report from the last July that has questioned the reality of the seals. The seals join segments of the twin booster rockets that power shuttle ascent into space. It must be able to contain the hot gases generated by the burning fuel. The early search for the cause of the June 28th accident has focused on the right booster, which appears to have been emitted an unusual plume of flame 14 seconds before Challenger exploded, killing its 7-member crew. Aviation Week and Space Technology Respected Industry magazine reported Monday that NASA investigators believe the right rocket booster became detached from the shuttle's main fuel tank at once. There's 2 points, and the magazine said space agency officials have believed that the rocket pivoted a main fuel tank, then penetrated and sealed off the explosion. One NASA official who speculated on the condition of not being identified by name confirmed that the agency is investigating such a scenario, but this said officials are trying to determine where the flame from it. In Springfield, Massachusetts, Springfield's mayor and budget director said Monday that plans to cut at least $2 million from departmental budget requests that total $177.8 million. My idea is to go beyond that, said Mayor Richard E. Neal, said Monday afternoon after concluding the first round of budget hearings. He and City Auditor Budget Director Henry J. Pitcher will continue to conduct throughout the week. Neal indicated further cuts would provide a caution against losses in the federal revenue, the amounts of efforts which would remain unclear. Pitcher said there were already a funding gap, which requests come in at $1.9 million more than anticipated revenue, Pitcher said, and that's even with a $9 million in additional but unguaranteed state aid. Even cuts in the amount Department Secretary said expects final budget to increase in average of some 5 to 6% as they did last year. But some departments have requested an increase of more than 20%, such as library and museums. Budget requests would represent 23% increase, more than $6 million of the fund, Pietro said. Of larger increases sought included Civic Center and Symphony Hall with a $1.9 million request that is $543,600 higher, despite state goals of trustees to reduce the deficit by increasing revenues and cutting costs, an $11.5 million revenue. Here, Hartford, new paper among the officers at the Hartford Police Department will be getting on paternity leave for the papas. The agreement reached Monday between the city and the police officers union gives male police officers 8 days of paid paternity leave as well as additional days on the approval of the police chief, according to Albert McGrail, attorney for the union. As a result of the agreement, both male and female police personnel are now going to be able to use their sick day allowance for their parental leave. They get 15 days of paid sick leave annually and can accumulating union use 6 days over the period of years. The issue was raised in November 1983 when patrol officer Timothy Hogan requested paternity leave and was denied it. The Connecticut Board of Mediation and Arbitration ruled last year that the police department cannot discriminate against policemen in providing leave. In New Haven, all clocks in search of a quick fix treatment burden on hospital emergency rooms fight the state, according to a survey by the Connecticut Hospital Association. The survey indicates that acute and chronic alcoholics are clogging the emergency rooms by returning again and again because there are no active facilities to detoxify and treat them. The survey found that in just 1 month in October 1985, almost 2,000 alcoholics sought help at the hospital emergency rooms in the state. The CHA studies indicated almost half of the alcoholics at 45% were sent home on the street once they had slept off the effects of the alcohol. Only 19% were referred to a state facility, 11% were admitted to a hospital, and 8% were sent to another facility to shelter.
But right now, high pressure keeps it to the south of us.
Hartford, a controversial bill abolishing the state's one-man grand jury system in favor of the citizen grand jury will get a public hearing after narrowly clearing its first legislature hurdle. The bill has been a key recommendation of a special committee and created a legislature to examine the state's criminal justice system and included that coming in on an 8-5 vote in January. The General Assembly and Judicial Committee voted 11-9 on Monday to give the measure a public hearing. Representative William L. Wallenberg, Republican of Farmington, the committee chairman, opposed the bill, saying that changes in the grand jury system that took effect in October had barely given a chance to work. Stock market reports here. Dow Jones closed about 650.67, up 5.12.
In northern Maine. In terms of what we're expecting, it starts Thursday.
Standard & Poor's 500 stock index closed at 216.24, up 168. Sports tonight.
Some rain will depend on
University of Yukon Huskies will be at home tonight, taking on the University of Pittsburgh Panthers here, and the Whalers will be out in St. Louis tonight, taking on the St. Louis Blues, and the Boston Celtics will be in Sacramento, taking on the Sacramento Kings as they start the second half of the 1986 regular season here. Okay, Dave Neiman has the weather. Take it away, Dave. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wiggins. Right now, our current conditions at noontime reports. It's 22 at Brandon Airport in Hartford, 22 at Bradley and Windsor Locks. It's 20 out in Waterbury. It's 20 out in Danbury, 24 in Bridgeport and New Haven and New London, 27 out in Southampton, 24 in West Islip, 24 in New York City, 21 in Yonkers, in Whiteland, 21 in Newburgh, 21 out in Poughkeepsie, 23 in Albany, 23 in Springfield, and 23 in Worcester here. Okay, let's take a look at our map situation here.
Not really sure altogether, but it looks like definitely
It shows the snow's going to be moving out, bringing some cold temperatures in. It's going to be snowing for the Great Lakes, snowing in northern Nevada, stretching east to Washington, Oregon, and Idaho down from Montana down to Wyoming. And rain showers from southern Oregon coast down for the California coastline here, and a station from the Gulf of Mexico stretching on to Central Florida here.
This is just one model, and there's a lot of other ones that are giving us less precipitation, and even some that are giving more. For the next 7 days, here's what it looks like. You know that this is going to be a mess Thursday into Friday morning. This system will then wind down
and
clearing Friday afternoon, but then once again another clipper system comes in early Saturday morning, bringing us some more snow. And don't forget, after the show today, you can find
high pressure centered in Oklahoma and low pressure centered in southern Oregon and California. And it's going to be cold for much of the eastern half of the nation here. So our forecast for the day will go like this. Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Any lingering snow will end this evening and be followed by gradual clear and colder. Low in the teens and Wednesday, variable clouds and cold. High 25 to 30 degrees. XM forecast for Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, high in the 20s. Thursday, warmer into the 30s by Saturday, and lows in the single digits. Thursday, warmer into the teens by Saturday.
too late to get vaccinated. New research finds women who smoke may have an increased risk of
Sun will set about 5:16 p.m. and high tide at New London, 11:23 p.m.
who had smoked a pack a day for at least
That's me for the weather.
6%
Peter?
more likely
Okay, thank you, David.
of breast cancer.
People news.
Linked to smoking and breast cancer. Susan?
Singer Kenny Rogers will have to cancel all 16 concerts scheduled for most of the month because of his ongoing surgery to remove his cyst on his vocal cords.
Stopped by more than 130 minutes.
His publicist said Rogers said Monday that the surgery is a routine edit. I say this is a really positive chance to take care of the problem I have had a long time. His recovery should take up to 6 weeks, forcing concert cancellation, said publicist Wendy First. However, he still plans to host the Grammy Awards on February 25th, which you can see right here on Channel 3. Bob Geldof, organizer of the Band-Aid and Light Aid campaign, said to raise nearly $94 million for famine relief in Africa, said that I'd like to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. I would like to have it because it is the ultimate prize given honor of the Irish rock star and lead singer of the Boomtown Rats was quoted in a Women magazine interview published today saying, women quoted him as saying that many young people would be delighted if he were awarded the prize, but that he was tired of being labeled as a saint. It's a preposterous notion. I don't want to be saint. Bomb because halos get very heavy and they rust very easily if they're not interested in living up to it, he said. Bob Dylan's concert tour down under has been moved from New Zealand and Australia, where he is performing with rocker Tom Petty. 45-year-old Dylan has performed 4 concerts in New Zealand before moving on to Australia on Monday. He last performed in the concert about 20 years ago. Graham Greene, considered by many to be the best living writer of English, has become a member of the Order of Merit, and the 81-year-old Duffer's family is delighted. And Queen Elizabeth II has appointed Greene, who has written 49 books since 1921 and a member of the group, which is limited to 24 people at any time. Buckingham Palace announced Monday night that Ewan Cameron, and director of the London publisher, Baldy said his family was delighted, and we are thrilled to have our orders announced with Queen were Air Commodore Sir Frank Whittle, 78, who invented the jet engine and Frederick Exchanger, who is 67-year-old biochemist who twice won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Current members include sculptor Henry Moore and actor Laurence Olivier. About 240 people in Rosemont, Illinois put their arms on the line for a chance to appear in the Sylvester Stallone's movie Over the Top. They were contestants in an arm wrestling contest that eventually were used to pick 7 people to appear in the movie about a truck driver who becomes a world champion arm wrestler. The final 7 champions will be chosen after another round in Las Vegas.
Do you have an open sore on your leg?
U.S. Representative Delbert Latta has returned to his home in Bowling Green, Ohio, to continue his recovery from the triple coronary bypass surgery. The 65-year-old Ohio Republican and ranking minority member of the House Budget Committee was discharged from the Cleveland Clinic on Monday, 6 days after surgery. Clinic spokeswoman Marion Mosley said.
Related care at no cost, including doctor visits, wound evaluation, and financial compensation. If you have an open leg wound or sore that still hasn't healed, call 855-731-2300.
A book about Toronto's embattled mayor Rob Ford is heading to the big screen. A Canadian production.
And finally, Los Angeles in the February 1st episode of ABC's Benson. Lieutenant Governor Benson Dubai, played by Robert Gillane, walked in a veteran center in search of a missing friend and wound up in the middle of a lively rap between 2 disabled. Do you like to stay in a wheelchair? Asked Lefty, who have a book instead of hand. I thought you were just lazy. If I need a can open, I ask you. Snap Eddie, the veteran wheelchair. Come on, give me 5. Lefty replied, pushing his hook toward Ford. A loose forward process? No way, kidded Eddie. Benson and Vernon himself checked when the director of the center apologized for the bionic humor. Benson had his own quip ready. Those guys could laughy crack, they get all the good parking places. It's a scene you wouldn't have seen on a TV a few years back, when disabled characters were only used to evoke sympathy and never poke fun at their own disabilities. What's more, you probably wouldn't have seen our David Smith and Amity in a wheelchair used for Alan Toy in these roles as you did on Benson the other night. Instead, you have seen able-bodied actors pretending to be disabled. Now that there seems about over this season alone, the following shows have prominently featured disabled characters. Airwolf on CBS, which used Wiki Whitman, a youngster with Down syndrome, as a guest star in an episode about the kidnapping of an aircraft designer's mentally disabled son. An episode featured 5 deaf children. Love is Never Found, an NBC TV movie starring deaf actors Phyllis Fletch and Ed Waterstreet as the struggling parents of a daughter born with a hearing disability. Highway to Heaven, which starred Guadalupe Team Stretch in a 2-parter about a lawyer who takes on a case of a badly disfigured man. Harry Chine Talking Patty, a CBS afternoon special for youngsters starring deaf actress Mary Whelan, who is a hearing impaired teenager who goes punk to attract attention. Kenny Lacey, CBS, which recently featured double MTs James Stacy, polio victim Victoria Ann Lewis, and other disabled actors in an episode about muggers who prey upon the disabled, and Spence for Hire, on which Phil Fletch will get started on. A newspaper advised columnists to hire Spencer Robert Ure to protect one of regular correspondents. And that's going to be it for the Eyewitness News, a noon edition on this February the 11th, 1986 on a Tuesday. I'm Peter Winslow, Dave Neveson. Have a good day, and Eyewitness News will be back.
Remember the feeling you had when you
at 5:30. Coming in next on Channel 3 will be The Young and the Restless. Coming in next on Channel 3 for now. Pearson, have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow noon. Bye-bye for now. Here.
well.